Hello, you're listening to Shadow Podcasts. I'm Öykü, and we're here to record a special program for Berlinale with Mariona, my dear friend that I met last year in Berlinale Talents, and we only get to chance to see each other in Cannes last year. So welcome, Mariona. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Öykü. Well, I'm Mariona Borrull. I'm a Spanish film critic. I work for Fotogramas, and I also work as a programmer for a couple of indie film festivals and a wine film festival, which is a curious idea.
So with Mariona, we did, I think, 3 festivals so far, right? Cannes, Venice, and Berlinale. Yeah, I am correct, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how was the festival like for you? Because we couldn't go to Berlinale last year, so I think like I can't compare the last year's edition with this, but how did you feel like, and did you enjoy in general?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know. I feel like I can't complain because, Berlinale is the least author-ish and least devoted to like promoting the same author cinema that Cannes or Venice have in their lineups. So I feel like I can't complain, but the thing is the competition was like pretty, I would say average, but I would like to say mediocre. It was like there were so many films that were like socially involved and socially like very progressive and very modern and very skeptical towards traditional standards or genres talking towards cinema and towards masculinity and things like that. But the thing is, even though the competition had some very like interesting themes, the thing is I had the same feeling than when Dieter Koslik was directing the festival, and he kind of programmed all the important films, all that let me quote one, necessary films. It's like I'm really not that interested in a competition that's not very good, but actually like has like very important and capital, themes. And it's like, even though they were like good films and good, directors working there, and I really love quite a lot of, competition titles. And the thing is, the rest of it was like, I wouldn't say noise, but it was like, okay, just okay. And
Yes, I
I
see.
don't know.
But I feel
Yeah.
like because I talked to people who went there last year, and like if you say that this year's was mediocre, I think it was bad last year. So it was really
Ooh.
bad, I think. And comparing to that, I think we have a really like it's not below the average, you know what I mean? It's there's a still a level of quality. So I think we can say that, but like for example, after watching Ingeborg Bachmann, which is Margaret von Trotta, like one of the best directors, like a real author, but I was like, why this film is in the competition? Because it was so ordinary for me, like in terms of formal choices, about narration. I was like, this is so old. Yeah, I felt that a lot, and I think especially like in the last days, I tended to just skip the competition all the time. I felt like before going to the movie, like I was like, maybe this film will not be good. And at the end, all the films I watched and enjoyed had a prize, and I was like, oh, okay. I think I did my best. I got the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and you were lucky, man, because I usually whenever I skip a competition film, it's the one that gets the prize. But the thing is, for example, the film that won, Sur l'Adamant,
Mm-hmm.
on the Adamant, I know Nicolas Philibert was the first, or maybe the one that established, this kind of naturalistic approach towards documentary and this kind of,
Mm-hmm.
interviewing style, kind of I don't know, I would say a Wiseman-ish
It's more
cinematography.
caring than Wiseman. I think it's more human. No.
Really? I mean, I would say he's more caring, but I don't think he's as interesting because I don't know. I was watching Sur la Demande, and I was feeling like I have seen this movie 100 times, and I don't know. I didn't feel like something was sparkling inside me, and I know I can feel like I can. Sorry, I can sound like a cynical, skeptical, inhumane person right now. But I don't know. The critic in me was like, I would really like to see another way of portraying these very interesting characters, because there were a lot of interesting characters. The man that
That
thought of
guy,
himself as
the
being a
guy,
genius, that was a
that
thing.
I really wanted to meet that guy. Like I just waited till the end to see like to see the guy's name because he was
The
so
name.
interesting. Yeah, like because I believe that he's still living in Paris, so I have a chance to meet him like and talk about the Doors, the music, psychedelic music. Like he was like a genius there. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I don't know, I think they deserved a lot more. And I don't know if I'm being like, I feel like I'm being like too picky and and too like demanding of films, but I think we should, I don't know, ask for something more from a
hmm.
Golden Bear. We had so many great films in
I
competition, like
feel
for
like
example.
I feel like the jury want you to choose the film that will people have the lesser intention to give the prize. Like nobody would have thought that Sur la Demande would win the prize. I don't like.
Hmm,
I remember talking with people, and I was like, no, Philibert, he doesn't have a chance at all. And then he win. Like I think it's also maybe it's not for just like surprising people. It's just it's a film that won't get a prize because it's not that
hmm,
catchy, controversial like Manandrome. You know what I mean? It's a really
yeah.
humble movie in every way. So I think they wanted to honor that side and because it's about being invisible in the society at the same time. And I think it's also reverse that invisibility giving when they give the prize. You know what I mean? And maybe the way he approached was a bit classic, especially in terms of documentary. It's really classic. I don't want to say talking heads, but still.
Yeah.
But I really loved how the carers are mingled in with the characters or like let's say patients that till a certain point I couldn't understand who was the carer and who was the patient, and I think it portrays that relations in a really good way.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, I actually I love your reading about the movie, and I didn't talk to Öykü before recording this, so this is not prepared, but yeah, I think that's a good way to like write a chronicle about an awards selection, because
mm,
there's nothing more random or unjust than an award selection, and I don't find any reason to like be happy or dissatisfied with an award selection, because every time is just I don't know, nonsense, in a
yeah.
very like fundamental way. And I think you've written and read it like very beautifully, so I
I
thank you for that. I
thank
absolutely thank you for that.
you. I thank you. By the way, I think that this will be a trilogy. So will be because I read in the
Oh,
press material that he will continue filming with the same patients with adding new characters, and I think he will in the second film he will go to the hospital because there is also always a talk about the hospital. So I think it will be a trilogy, and maybe we will get this chance to see these characters more.
and
And
maybe you will get your chance to interview
yeah,
that man,
why
that genius
not?
man.
By the way, we didn't introduce the movie. Like we were
Oops.
talking, like everyone watched it. So actually, Sur la Demande, it's about a boat which is stationed in Seine River in Paris, and it's a daycare center where psychiatric patients go every day and do workshops and music and painting, and so we see their everyday lives. And but they have a statue there as if they were tell what they want, organize what they want. So they have really liberty to take care of initiatives and express
Yeah.
themselves. So yeah, that was my statement about Sur la Dame.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I find it like very soothing that even though I think it's a great movie. For example, Past Lives didn't win the Golden Bear. Past Lives, I think it's the debut film from Celine Song. It's a debut, right?
I haven't watched it, so yes,
Öykü,
missed it.
no.
Yeah, and I missed it, so
Oh my goodness.
but I know how everyone was hyped about it. The thing is, even though I didn't watch it, I didn't like how people described it, because people have a tendency to just associate things with things. So it was like, oh, it's After Sun, but it's like a A24 film, like this year's After Sun.
What?
Yeah, people were talking about it like that. So I don't like these marketing things, but I know that it will be a friend told me that it's in the middle of something, that it's both a crowd pleaser but also a good independent film.
Well, the film centers about the relationship between two life friends. I would say two friends for life that separate when they're still children. She goes to New York, goes and lives in New York, and he stays in Korea, and they stop talking to each other. And I think 12 years later they start talking again. And the thing is, when they start talking again, everything comes back, and all their luggage and emotional luggage comes back. And I think it's a very like well written, well acted story. But I wouldn't compare it to After Sun. There's not there it's a very like theatrical middle shot movie, and I wouldn't dare to compare it, like, because I don't have the reference as fresh as I would like to. But it's a very Woody Allen-ish movie.
Maybe
And
Hamaguchi a bit. No,
Hamaguchi has a richness and a flavor when it comes to luck and destiny, and
yeah.
and random encounters that seem like predestined and tragic. And but Hamaguchi has a force that this film lacks, but I think it's very well made, and I think we should like praise that as well. But I'm so glad it didn't win. I just wanted to say this because it was the clear favorite for the Golden Bear, and it finally like came out with nothing, which was like surprising, really.
Do you think it was because it was also in Sundance? Like, you can sit with us, like you're a I don't know.
You're a cool kid. We're just the queer teenagers.
I feel like I think the way you describe it, it's like a more classic way of narration. So I think there's another movie which is a bit classic in terms of narration, but still interesting because it's about tradition itself. I think it was Philip Garrel's The
I
Plot.
don't know how to pronounce The Plot.
Yeah, I think it was it's a constellation, but we discussed this. Why did he choose this name? So we didn't come up with something. It's a constellation, Lo Chariot. But what's the connection between the title and the movie? We don't know. I don't know.
So yeah, I actually have a theory about it, because what's the only constellation, or maybe the first constellation, that comes to your mind when you think about the sky? For me, it's the Plot. So it's Le Grand Chariot. This constellation we have inside our imagination since we are kids. Other constellations are really like harder to find, or maybe less defined. And I think Le Grand Chariot has a really like familiar aura to it, and Philippe Carrel here like portrays his family, and always like he builds a tragedy around time, and illness, and love, and the ending of love. And but the thing is, he always come back to the power and the care of the family. So for me, this kind of familiarity is really important, and when coming to choosing a title. And I think The Plot is a really good title, because it explains with only an image what we think we can find everywhere in the world, wherever we are. but when we look up to the sky, you know, and when we're kind of
Oh,
lost, we can always find, you know, le grand chariot. Sorry for my French.
that's a really good explanation. But I also have a thing, but it's just a coincidence. Le Grand Chariot in Turkish, it's a big
Ooh.
bear. It's a big bear. So the bear, you know, the silver bear.
Ah,
It's just like a joke.
wow.
It's just a joke, but like it's
Okay, yeah, I understood. Thank you for explaining.
But I think it's a real Philip Garel film. Like if someone would ask me like, do you recommend this film? I'd say if you like Philip Garel, yeah, you'd like.
Yeah, it's a film where you have to like accept the fact that whenever scene is about to start, it's going to end like
Yeah,
right away. You won't see, you know, the core and the climax. It's no, just you don't get to see it.
I think that I felt really familiar with the narration because I think I have this familiarity with his cinema, and you know, if you love some kind of cinema, a director, and you feel home watching their films, and I felt that with this, no, with voiceover narration, with the family setting, and I also think that even we don't know about them much, there's a lot of research behind the whole puppet theater thing. Like I think it's necessary to come to that point, even though we don't see these research he did, but I think he really knows what he's talking about the puppet masters, the theater, what they the stories they tell. I think he really did his research, and it feels like, even though it's not there, and I really respect that.
I think it's very, you know, rare to find movies where you kind of feel that something has been made through subtraction, because movies are like always like a concatenation and a sum of parts, you know, and a flow of images that tend to like be imagined as, you know, adding up to the thing that they like continue, no? But the thing is, as in maybe painting, and maybe I'm being, you know, maybe I'm being like too, I don't know, highbrow or whatever, but the thing is, as in painting, I think there's a kind of a, you know, a filmmaking method that subtracts thing, and I think this is a very good example of, you know, taking things off your film you don't want them to be there, you know.
Exactly.
And everything is there, and everything that's necessary is there, even the, you know, the smallest gestures. I'm thinking about Louis Garrel and a cross. I'm not saying anything else. Even the smallest, you know, anecdotes, and there's so many like little scenes with the, for example, the mother and the father, that it's just anecdotes, and anyone could have removed them, right? But how Garel like keeps them there, it means that they're like really important. They're more important than a heartbreak. They're more important than, you know, a love affair.
Because
they're just, you know,
that's how it works in life. That's how it works in life. The small things that you care about them more than, I don't know, big stuff. I think it touches you more. And I also like the way it had a documentary side, because both in terms of the family, I think it's also, I don't know how they're in real life, but I think it still filters through their characters, because they have the same names, and I think we see that kind of sibling relationships. Maybe it's just like maybe the glimpse of it, but it's there. And the other documentary side is, of course, the art of puppet theater, and like it's so ingenious. You know what I mean? It's not portraying it directly.
It's not simple.
Look, it's a puppet theater, but just like putting inside a really simple and beautiful story, but also respecting and giving a tribute to that art. I think it's really clever.
Absolutely. And it's very, the word, I think, yeah, it's respecting towards, you know, the conditions they work under, because you don't see them suffer. Like you don't, you know, have I don't know, a misery pornography scene, you know. You don't suffer for their lives, but the thing is, you know, they're poor. I mean, they don't live in a you know, fancy apartment. They just and they have cash money all the time, and it's like, I don't think I could stand like mentally or emotionally like living in these conditions, economical conditions, but they seem to like be, I would say, content with it. And I think there's something to be learned in that. I don't
Mhm.
know. In aurea mediocritas, they say in Latin. So
Oh.
I had to say something in Latin. Now you can forgive
So
me.
I want to ask you about more controversial titles, like
Mm.
maybe a fire, because I think there
Ah,
are people who really loved the movie, and there are also people who thought, oh, it's so mediocre. What is this like story?
okay. A Fire, the film by Christian Petzold.
Yes.
Another borderline comedy. People have read it as a comedy, but I didn't love that much. And I had several film critics that wrote very, generously about it, that and treated it as a comedy, sitting right beside me, and they didn't laugh as well. So, well, whatever. The thing is, this comedy about a man, a writer that retreats to a summer house with his friend and tries to, edit a novel. And what else? What should we like explain about it? Because
I think we can add that it had a clear reference to La Collectionneuse from Romer, because it's also the same setting with two friends coming to a country house, and there's a woman who has a big sexual presence in the house, in the environment, and there's a clash between the masculine figure.
males.
Yes. And yeah, I think that's the main reference point.
I would say for me, and maybe I'm being like too simplistic about that. So please do not, mark my words.
Okay.
Okay, this is just a previous thought and a previous digestion of this film. But the thing is, why do we have to stand for 2 hours to another, portrait of a man suffering for his inability to deconstruct himself? So it's like I was watching it, and it was like I was feeling, my goodness, I mean, there are so many other films that can be, shot than this one. It's like I already know this character is a miserable, and it's a, bad human being from minute one. I already know that. I mean, I don't need him to, gain forgiveness or gain the power of love or friendship or whatever. I mean, it's like I don't have to like go through this movie. Not again. I mean, I have heard men crying before. I know what it sounds like, and I was so fed up, because I don't know. I mean, Christian, man, I guess this is a comedy, but for me, it just like looks like a mumbled radio voice, like that actually is like turned off 24/7 all around us, everywhere. And it's like
Mm.
we don't need that. We don't actually need that.
Okay.
And I don't know.
I totally respect that, but I think he wanted to mock that characterization. Maybe I don't know if maybe for you it's not like good enough about the mocking side,
Hmm.
because I felt that he's not like trying to explain or analyze that character. I think he also knows that he's everywhere, so I think he wants to mock him. Like it's
Yeah,
that's
I don't disagree with that. But the thing is, I actually like felt very tired of just, representing it again. I really enjoyed when his editor comes in a couple of days later, or maybe a week later or something like that. And when he stays, he acts as a way to like demonstrate that he's actually really pathetic. And yeah, and it works. And when the editor's there and he's the most, yeah, pathetic and ridiculous person around, and it becomes clear that it's not anyone's fault, but he's suffering so much. I enjoyed that quite a lot. But I don't know, getting to there was so long, so long. And and the fires, I guess it was a symbol or a metaphor, or
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. For me, it was like not good enough. Yeah, you totally described it. I mean, it was like it could have been something much more interesting.
To me, actually, it's not a really popular thing, but I'm not a fan of Petzold previous films. I respect them, but the melodrama is too much for me. Like I loved Transit, but I wasn't promoting the movie when it came out. You know what I mean? Like I understand, I respect the cinema. So before watching it, I was expecting a similar film, and when it came out a comedy, I was surprised, and that's why I think I enjoyed that side because it was something unexpected to me, like that kind of comedy, a comedy that borders on something like a early ozone sly humor, you know, kind of situation, especially when the editor comes. And I think that surprised me, and I love that side. But I totally agree with you about the representation. I think it was on Letterboxd about the character Leon. The review said like Leon is on the Twitter. You see him every day. I think it's so true. It's really true. About the fire, because I talked to Petzold, and I asked him a question about the movie's intentions, or his intentions in the movie. And I asked him, like, there are three levels: being in one's mind, being in one's body, and being in the present time, being in the environment. And I think it's just like the fire that comes like gradually, who comes to their house. It's like you're in a situation, but you're so stuck in your own self that you're not paying attention to the world and to the present time. And I think it's like the fire is the equivalent of that ignorance towards the present and the world, because he's really a modern character, a modern male hero, really he's in his mind. And the song we hear all the time, in my mind,
dun, 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 dun.
So I think the fire was like that, it had this meaning.
I mean, that's absolutely a good way to read it. Absolutely. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, really. I don't want to sound like this character. Please don't, like, misread me. But for me, it's like, okay, should we go on to anything else? I mean, because I was like watching it and it was so long. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I'm really glad. I don't want Petzold to do another one of these, so please don't tell me he's preparing a trilogy.
It's a trilogy. No, he said, like, he was like, I don't know why I said it. Now everyone was talking about it. So I think he's really regretting that he said that it will be a trilogy. And I hope he will not do a air thing like an Avatar.
Oh, please. So the next one will be with a tornado or something.
Maybe.
Oh, your masculinity goes flying around.
And the final controversial, the big controversial, Angela Shanalik's the music. Like because Rather Jude did a statement in the award ceremony about bookkeepers controlling the screenwriters, and it was like a political statement, and it's a significant award. So what do you think of it?
Whoa. So Angela Shanalek has directed a tragedy, but she has turned it into a modern tragedy. So for the first half of the movie, it's a story about a guy that marries a woman, but he's destined to doom all the women in his life, and I won't say anything else. And for the second part, the movie wanders to a more modern set. And the thing is, that's the part when I realize I'm actually loving the movie I'm seeing, because Angela
Really?
Shanalek, yeah.
The second
Angela
part.
Shanalek, yeah, absolutely. Because, she's a very tough director to see. Her movies are slow, are quiet. I love her a lot. But here she like embraces all the modernity in the way she portrays the landscape, and the way she portrays an action we don't always see, that often is outside the frame, and often it's not explained, and it's a very like tough movie to see. So I was kind of struggling to like get a grip on what was actually happening there. But this kind of stiffness and this kind of roughness that she builds, she actually kind of starts, deconstructing it and smoothing it and softening it towards the middle of the film. So from a Pasolini movie, she starts directing a Kelly Reichardt movie. And towards the end, it's like you start seeing all this love coming into the frame and all this kind of affection, like kind of, painting over the tragedy. And it seems like she wants to tell you, okay, life is very hard, and maybe, death comes whenever they want. I treat death as a non-binary being. And maybe, everything can end anytime. But when you have someone you care about, or when you have, an appreciation and an affection towards the world you're living in. For example, I think about the lizard that appears in the movie. I think that's a very clear sign of, being in a world that's alive and fully independent from your cinematic will, if you wish. And I think it has a very humane and a very humanistic approach towards, fatality that I didn't, expect. And I didn't, I don't think I have seen it that much, because fatality and humanity and affection are very like extreme and separate extremes right now. And I think someone that has the power to unite them in a very sensible way, I wouldn't say sensitive, I would say sensible way, and a very intelligent and clever way, I think it makes a really great movie. And I don't know, for me it was the best prize. I mean, absolutely. From the award selection, if I had to agree with one, it was this one. That's it. I'm sorry, Öykü. I spent so much time talking about it.
No, I'm
so
really
passionate.
happy because I'm still having questions about music. I really want to watch it again.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Because I feel like in terms of like the way you describe it about humane and the sensitivity that she's portraying, I feel like I couldn't reach that level. I respect in her formal choices. I love that strictness and the off-frame technique that she employs, the ambiguity, the way the tragedy that she's talking about was also off-frame in the movie, because it's like if you don't read the synopsis, I think lots of people couldn't understand what's happening in the movie, because it's really hard to follow. And the untimely setting is also, I'd say, I don't want to say obstacle, but an obstacle for the ordinary way of spectatorship. And
it's like tricky.
Yeah, but I felt that the last part of it was like I was kind of lost in the film, maybe at some point, like in the way, the moment when they come to city, that part was like I think I just lost myself there. And I'm really being honest, right? Right now.
No,
maybe
please.
Maybe it's the festival pace, you go to films, and I don't think music is like a film to waste in a festival, and it really needs to be like rewatched again and appreciated. I wanted to skip from there to Best Day Was Here, because I think it's a really different way of humane cinema. So I wanted to compare it to Here.